She flew across the country to surprise her husband. She packed the black dress he loved. She wore the pearl earrings he gave her on their anniversary. She even called the hotel earlier that day and had a bottle of wine sent to his room with a note that said, "For the man I still fall in love with every day." She thought this trip would become one of their favorite stories. The surprise visit. The hotel room reunion. The night they would laugh about for years. But when she opened the hotel room door, she didn't find her husband working late like he said he would be. She heard a woman laughing in the bedroom. And when she opened that door, she didn't just lose her marriage. She lost her sister. She lost her family. She lost the life she thought she was living. And 10 minutes later, she walked into traffic without even realizing it. This is a story about betrayal. But more than that, it's a story about what happens when your entire life collapses in a single night. And how sometimes the worst thing that ever happens to you becomes the beginning of the life you were actually meant to live. Clara Mitchell had been planning the trip for 3 days. Not a big trip. Not a vacation. Just a flight from Atlanta to Chicago with one small suitcase and a secret she was very proud of. She was going to surprise her husband. Marcus had been in Chicago for 3 weeks working on what he called the biggest deal of his career. He sounded tired on the phone lately. Distracted. Short with his words sometimes. But Clara believed in giving people the benefit of the doubt, especially the person you married. Especially the person who had never given you a reason not to trust them. She stood in front of the mirror at 5:30 in the morning before her flight, holding 2 dresses up to herself. The red one and the black wrap dress Marcus loved. She chose the black one. She packed light. 1 dress, 1 pair of heels, makeup, perfume, and the pearl earrings Marcus had given her on their 2nd anniversary. The card that came with the earrings had said, "For the woman who makes every room better just by walking into it." She had kept that card in her jewelry box for 4 years. She put the earrings in her purse. She wanted to look perfect when he opened the door. She wanted his face to light up. She wanted that moment. Clara and Marcus had been married for years. They were not the loud, dramatic, passionate couple that fought and made up and posted long anniversary messages online. They were the quiet couple, the stable couple, the couple everyone thought would last forever because nothing about them looked fragile. Marcus was a corporate finance consultant. Clara worked in brand communications for a marketing firm. They had a house in Atlanta, a routine, Sunday grocery shopping, Friday takeout, vacation once a year, dinner with friends once a month. It was a normal marriage. And Clara loved normal. She loved knowing where her life was going. She loved stability. She loved trust. Most of all, she loved Marcus because he was consistent. He called when he said he would call. He showed up when he said he would show up. He remembered small things she said months earlier. He listened when she talked. He paid attention. Or at least, she thought he did. Around 7 months before the Chicago trip, things started changing. Not dramatically. Not enough to start a fight. Just small things. He texted less. He traveled more. He was tired more often. He took calls in other rooms. He started locking his phone. But every time she noticed something, there was always a reasonable explanation. Work was stressful. Clients were demanding. Deadlines were tight. He was building something for their future. Clara believed him because Clara was a trusting person. She believed that if you loved someone, you trusted them until they gave you a reason not to. What she didn't know was that sometimes people don't give you a reason. Sometimes they give you a performance. Clara had an older sister named Rebecca. Rebecca was 4 years older and had been her best friend her entire life. Rebecca was the one who helped her with homework when they were kids, the one who picked her up when her car broke down in college, the one who held her hand when their father died, the one who stood next to her as maid of honor at her wedding. Rebecca was the person Clara trusted most in the world, which is why Clara never found it strange that Rebecca and Marcus got along so well. Rebecca had actually introduced them. There had been a networking party years earlier, and Rebecca had walked Marcus over and said, "Clara, I think you two would really like each other." Clara had smiled. Marcus had smiled. And that was the beginning of her marriage. She would later realize that sometimes the worst betrayals don't come from enemies. They come from the people who helped build your life. The hotel in Chicago was tall and modern with a quiet lobby and business travelers everywhere. Clara walked up to the front desk smiling and said, "I'm here to surprise my husband, Marcus Mitchell. He's in room 1214. The woman at the desk smiled and confirmed the room number. Clara went to the elevator feeling like she was in a movie. She checked her hair in the mirror, adjusted her dress, put on her earrings, sprayed her perfume. She could already imagine his face when he opened the door. The elevator opened on the 12th floor. She walked down the hallway slowly, counting the room numbers. 1208, 1210, 1212, 1214. She stood outside the door and smiled. Then she tried the handle. It was unlocked. That was strange. Marcus locked everything. She opened the door slowly and stepped inside. The lights were dim. His jacket was on the chair. His shoes were on the floor. He was there. She smiled and whispered, "Marcus?" Then she heard it. A woman laughing. From the bedroom. Clara froze. She knew that laugh. She had known that laugh since she was a child. Her overnight bag slipped from her hand and fell to the floor. She walked slowly toward the bedroom door and pushed it open. And in that moment, her entire life ended. Marcus was in the bed, and next to him was her sister, Rebecca. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. Marcus looked like someone had drained all the blood from his body. Rebecca looked calm. Too calm. Finally, Marcus said, "Clara, I can explain." Clara said, "It is exactly what it looks like." Rebecca pulled the sheet over herself and said something Clara would never forget for the rest of her life. "You should have called first." Clara stared at her. Rebecca then said something even worse. "I knew him before you did." And that was the moment Clara realized something that hurt even more than the cheating. Her marriage had started with a lie. Clara asked one question. "How long?" Marcus didn't answer. She asked again. He said, 7 months. 7 months. Every short phone call. Every late meeting. Every missed weekend. Every time he said he was tired. Every Sunday Rebecca said she was busy. 7 months. Her husband and her sister had been lying to her for 7 months. Clara didn't scream. She didn't cry. She just turned around, picked up her bag, walked out of the hotel room, walked through the lobby, walked outside into the Chicago night, and stepped into the street without looking. The SUV hit her before she even realized she was in the road. When Clara woke up, she was in an ambulance. There was a man sitting across from her in a suit and a dark coat. He looked worried. Very worried. She asked, "Who are you?" He said, "My name is James. I was driving the car." She stared at him. Then she asked, "Why are you here?" He said, "Because you look like someone who had just lost everything, and I didn't think you should wake up alone." That was the beginning of the second half of Clara's life. Over the next few months, Clara learned that Marcus had not only been cheating. He had also been moving money from their joint account into a separate account in his own name. Money that included part of the inheritance Clara had received when her father died. She filed for divorce. The divorce was long and messy and painful, but Clara did not fall apart the way everyone expected her to. She went to therapy. She started running in the mornings again. She moved into a new apartment. She bought plants for the windows. She reconnected with friends. She slowly started building a new life from the ground up. James, the man who had hit her with his car, stayed in her life. At first, he helped her find a good lawyer. Then he checked in to see how she was doing. Then they started talking regularly. Then they started having dinner when she visited Chicago for court dates. He never rushed her. He never pushed her. He just showed up, consistently, over and over again, until one day Clara realized she trusted him. And that realization scared her more than anything else had in a long time. But James once told her something she never forgot. He said, "You didn't make a mistake by trusting. You just trusted the wrong people." 2 years after the night in Chicago, Clara stood in a garden in Georgia in a white dress, about to marry the man who had once hit her with his car and then refused to leave her side in the hospital. During her vows, she said, "I didn't lose my life that night in Chicago. I lost the life that wasn't meant for me, and I found the one that was." Later that night, after the wedding, she stood outside under the lights in the trees and thought about the woman she used to be. The woman in the elevator going up to the 12th floor, smiling, excited, completely unaware that her entire life was about to change. She thought about everything that woman lost, and everything she became after losing it. And she realized something she would carry with her for the rest of her life. Sometimes the worst night of your life is the night that leads you to the life you were actually meant to live.